The Galactic Empire controlled over 1 million star systems and never once sent a single fleet beyond the galaxy's edge. That's not an accident, that's a choice. And something from beyond that edge already proved the crossing was possible and nearly destroyed everything in its wake. An empire that could destroy entire planets couldn't find the will to explore what lay beyond them. That asymmetry has never made sense until you understand who was really in charge. The real question is what Palpatine knew and what he chose to bury. The obvious answer is logistics. The galaxy is vast, resources were stretched, and there were rebels to crush. But that explanation falls apart the moment you start pulling at it. Because an empire that fielded 25,000 Star Destroyers and centralized the galaxy's entire war economy never even tried to cross its own border. That demands a better answer than logistics. In this video, we're looking at 4 reasons the Empire never crossed the galactic border, and one of them has nothing to do with technology or politics. There's one piece of Legends lore that reframes the entire question, but we'll get to that. First, we need to understand what the edge of the galaxy actually means. So what actually stops a fleet from leaving the galaxy? In Star Wars, hyperspace travel isn't free movement through empty space. It depends on a network of gravitational reference points, stars, planets, mass shadows that anchor the nav computer's calculations. Remove those anchors, and hyperspace travel becomes, at best, a blind jump into nothing. At worst, a death sentence. The intergalactic void isn't just distant, it's structurally empty, in a way that makes hyperspace navigation nearly impossible with existing technology. The Outer Rim is already considered the edge of reliable infrastructure. Beyond that lies the unknown regions, barely charted even after tens of thousands of years of spacefaring civilization. According to Timothy Zahn's Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy, even the Chiss, the Empire's most knowledgeable guides through the unknown regions, relied on Force-sensitive navigators, young Chiss Skywalkers, whose precognitive abilities were the only tool reliable enough to read the chaos in real time. And beyond the unknown regions, the void. No stars, no gravity wells, no lanes. And here's what most people miss. This wasn't an unsolvable problem. The Republic had navigated difficult space for thousands of years. The Chiss had done it for centuries. Given enough time and resources, Imperial engineers would have found a way. The Empire chose not to give them either. The void didn't stop the Empire stopped itself before it ever reached the void. If the intergalactic void sounds bad, consider what stands between the known galaxy and that void, the unknown regions. According to Chuck Wendig's Aftermath: Empire's End, the unknown regions are sealed off by a labyrinth of solar storms, rogue magnetospheres, black holes, and gravity wells, and, pointedly, things far stranger. The peoples who actually live inside the unknown regions have their own name for it. They call it the Chaos. Not metaphorically, that is the literal designation, because navigation computers become unreliable the moment you enter it. Standard hyperspace calculation, the foundation of every Imperial fleet maneuver, simply stops working correctly. Without Force-sensitive navigators, travel through the chaos had to be done jump by jump, one short hop at a time, recalculating after every exit from hyperspace. The route Palpatine's own Imperial computers eventually identified through the unknown regions still took several months to traverse. Explorers sent in before that route was found didn't come back. Not all of them, not most of them. Now consider that's still inside the galaxy. The unknown regions are dangerous enough to kill experienced scouts, break navigation computers, and require Force-sensitive precognition to traverse safely. They are not the void. They are the last stretch of galactic territory before the void. If the known galaxy is a city, the unknown regions are the abandoned industrial district at its edge. Dangerous, barely mapped, full of things that don't show up on sensors. And beyond that district, nothing. No stars, no gravity wells, no lanes, no reference points at all. The Empire couldn't safely cross its own backyard. The idea of crossing what lay beyond it wasn't ambition, it was suicide. If this is the kind of deep dive you're here for, hit like and subscribe. So much for the barriers, but here's the question nobody asks. If crossing was truly impossible, how did something manage to do it anyway? You remember that something from beyond the edge mentioned at the start? Here's what it actually was. In Legends continuity, most comprehensively documented in R.A. Salvatore's The New Jedi Order Vector Prime, the Yuuzhan Vong were a civilization from outside the Star Wars galaxy entirely. Refugees from a dying galaxy who had been traveling through the intergalactic void for millennia before arriving. They had solved the crossing. They made it. And when they did, they launched one of the most devastating invasions in galactic history. A war that killed trillions, shattered the New Republic, and very nearly erased civilization as the galaxy knew it. The galaxy, finally free of Imperial rule, never detected them coming. A civilization spread across thousands of worlds, had no early warning system, no forward scouts, no eyes beyond its own borders. Which, in hindsight, seems like exactly the kind of oversight an emperor with a galaxy-spanning surveillance apparatus probably should have caught. Just saying. But there are fragments within Legends suggesting that Imperial intelligence had encountered anomalous signals on the galaxy's edge, spatial distortions consistent with a massive fleet in transit, and that this data was classified and suppressed at the highest levels, not investigated, hidden. The Empire didn't go beyond the galaxy's edge because Palpatine knew the void wasn't empty, and the last thing he wanted was for his military apparatus to find something it couldn't control and return with questions he didn't want asked. Every reason we've covered so far could theoretically be fixed. Better engines, better nav charts, more resources, a different strategic doctrine. These are logistical problems, and the Empire solved logistical problems for a living. But what comes next isn't a logistical problem. It's Palpatine himself, and that one, you can't engineer your way out of. So what is the actual underlying reason the Empire never looked beyond its own borders? Palpatine didn't want the galaxy looking outward, for the same reason he didn't want it looking inward, at him, at what he was, at the Sith Empire concealed beneath the Imperial one. As James Luceno makes clear in Darth Plagueis, Palpatine's entire political philosophy was built on a single principle. No power exists outside his awareness, and no awareness exists outside his control. An extragalactic expedition would require officers with initiative and autonomy. It would require military assets operating beyond his direct oversight. It would require the galaxy's attention turning toward a horizon he didn't control. Every one of those things was a threat to him. Not to the Empire, to him, personally. And personally, I think this is the most honest reading of Palpatine we can offer. He wasn't a visionary who ran out of resources. He was a man who confused control with strength and paid the price for it at Endor. The Empire was not a civilization that expanded. It was a civilization that compressed. It folded everything, resources, loyalty, information, power, toward a single point. And that changes everything about how we read the Empire. The galaxy's borders were not the limit of what the Empire could reach. They were the limit of what Palpatine was willing to let exist outside his gaze. There's a real-world parallel here that's hard to ignore. During the Cold War, the space race was publicly framed as exploration, but it was primarily about control, about demonstrating power, about ensuring that whatever existed beyond the atmosphere was yours before it became someone else's. Neither superpower was genuinely committed to going somewhere they couldn't dominate. Palpatine understood that logic at a level most Cold War strategists never reached. He wasn't afraid of the void. He was afraid of what returning from it would mean, for the officers who made it back, for the ideas they'd bring with them, for the possibility that something out there didn't recognize his authority. The Empire never traveled outside the galaxy because Palpatine built a galaxy that wasn't meant to be left. And the cruelest irony is this: inside the galaxy, he was Emperor. Outside it, he was a name no one had ever heard.